Hey, listeners. Before we get started with today's episode, I'm here to share something I'm really excited about. If you caught my recent Make Money Mediating episode on diversifying your income, or if you read the companion article on monetizing your expertise with on-demand programs, then you know I'm a big believer in turning what you know into scalable, sustainable offerings. It's a way to make your practice go further, take your expertise and offer it in a variety of different ways. Well, I am thrilled to share that Make Money Mediating is now officially partnered with Thinkific, the platform that I'm using right now to build out my own suite of on-demand courses and downloadable trainings. If you've been watching me on LinkedIn, you know I'm starting with some social media trainings, and then I'll be building out from there coming soon. But if you're ready to create your own course, program, or client resource library, Thinkific makes it incredibly easy. You do not need a tech background. I know you think that I have a tech background and I'm all techie, but in fact, I like to use the tech. I have no idea how to make it and how to make it work. So you do not need a tech background for this to be perfect. You just need to be ready to package your knowledge in a way that serves more people. And right now, through this offer, you get a free 30-day trial with my link. You'll find the link in the show notes, but I made it a bit.ly link to make it easy. So it's bit.ly/MMMP-Thinkific. That's THINKIFIC. I'm going to put, again, all that in the show notes, along with links to that episode and the article to help you get started. So go build something brilliant. Hello, and welcome to the Make Money Mediating podcast. I'm your host, Susan Guthrie, and I'm an attorney, mediator, trainer, keynote speaker, author, podcaster, social media influencer, technology junkie, consultant, and coach. And although I know that sounds like a lot, but what it really means to me is that I've found a way to make a living doing what I love and doing it in a way that lets me help others. So in this podcast, I want to share some tips and insights into helping you create the career that lights you up and pays your bills, whether that's as a mediator, attorney, collaborative professional, or really anything that you are passionate about. So I'll be chatting with some of the most successful and influential experts in all areas associated with building your practice, and I'll share my own thoughts and the lessons I've learned along the way. So come along on the journey with us, and soon you'll have a practice that will let you make money mediating too. Hello, listeners, and welcome back to the Make Money Mediating podcast, where I'm here to help dispute resolution professionals and entrepreneurial practitioners build profitable, sustainable practices doing work they love. And one thing I wanted to say at the top of this episode is I love hearing from listeners. I love it when you reach out, and I really enjoy receiving feedback on the topics that I cover in my episodes, both what you've heard in those episodes and whether it was helpful to you, but also what you want to hear more of. And one thing that pops up periodically is a request for more skills-based content. And since I'm also a mediation trainer, I'm going to work in some skills training as we go along and see what you think. Bottom line, the business aspects of practice are important, but so is being great at what you do. So I've built up a list of skills to share that are both helpful in the business context, but are also going to help you up-level or perhaps refine your toolbox. And today, I want to talk about the one negotiation tactic that wins every time. And that's no matter the context, right? It could be a multi-million-dollar business deal, a divorce mediation, or even negotiating bedtime with your toddler or curfew with your adolescent. The tactic works. And the best part, mediators, dispute resolution professionals, lawyers, And business owners and entrepreneurs can all use it because it is not trickery and it's not a hack. It's a lens. And that lens is framing. So what am I talking about, Susan? What is framing? Framing is simple. It's the art of shaping how information is presented so it influences how it's perceived. It is not about changing facts. It's about choosing what to emphasize. A really good example of this can be found in advertising. In fact, advertising is the home of framing. But here's an example. Would you rather buy a yogurt that's labeled 90% fat-free or one that says it's 10% fat? Right? This is the same product, but you likely have a different response to it. And that is the power of framing. This tactic is rooted in behavioral economics, specifically the work of Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky, who showed that people react more strongly to potential losses than equivalent gains. Hear that again. People react strongly to potential losses, what they're going to lose, than the equivalent gain. This is known as loss aversion. In fact, studies at Harvard's program on negotiation, lovingly called PON, or I call it that anyway, show that parties are more likely to make a deal when offers are framed as avoiding a loss rather than achieving a gain. So rather than talking about what you're going to get, people are more likely to accept a deal when they hear how it will help them avoid losing something. So this is really important in terms, I think you can see, in a mediation, in a negotiation, when you are talking to that toddler, right? All the important things are gained by how you frame what is being discussed. So here's how really good negotiators use framing to win or to achieve the ends that they want. And you see it everywhere. Framing is everywhere in high-stakes negotiations. So here's some examples. In salary talks, an employer might say, this offer of $20,000 is above industry average, instead of, we can't meet your $150,000 request. In the political realm, you might hear, a ceasefire isn't a concession. It's a strategic move to protect civilians. And in sales, where you hear it all of the time, a product does not cost you $100 a month. No. It's just $3.33 a day. Here's an actual example from advertising. There was a company in Australia that sold a painkiller, but they sold it under different labels. So one label was Nurofen migraine, another label would be Nurofen tension headache, etc., right? They just came up with different types of pain that it helped to resolve. And although the product was identical, the framing matched their consumers' pain, which allowed them to command higher prices and up their sales rate, right? People were looking for the product that solved their particular problem. So how they framed the exact same medicine led to higher sales and more awareness. So this takes us to how we, in dispute resolution, can use framing and to use it ethically. So how does this apply to you, say, as a mediator? Well, we hear about framing to reframe their positions as interests. In fact, this is a basic mediation skill. But let's really think about it, right? We see it all the time. Divorce attorney, right? Divorce mediator. So an example would be, he wants the house or she wants the house.
could be reframed to, he needs stable housing for the children, right? Or he desires stable housing for the children. You can shift blame to a future focus. She ruined the business becomes, how can we protect the business going forward? So we went from looking backwards into blame to future focused. How do we protect the business? And we can also use it, and every really good mediator that I've ever seen is such a pro at this, but highlighting mutual gains, right? Where the parties agree on things and they often don't even know it, right? You both want to avoid court. You both really care about your children being as little affected by the divorce as possible, right? You are finding ways to highlight where they are in accordance and where they are both going to gain rather than their differences. And this is not manipulation. It is translating. So I want you to think of it as taking the messaging and helping to translate it into terms that are helping the parties hear each other differently. Framing can also diffuse conflict. So when you hear a party say something like, they are being unreasonable, and gee, you've never heard that, right? They're being unreasonable. You can reframe that, or you might reframe it, and it sounds like you're feeling frustrated that your needs aren't being acknowledged, right? That isn't changing really the message, but it is reframing it into terms that perhaps can be heard by the other party and accepted by the party who said it. So you become not just a neutral in framing, but you become a narrative guide, right? You're taking their words and framing them in a way where both they can be accepted by the person stating them as well as heard and accepted by the person who's hearing them. I couldn't be a Susan podcast episode, right, without me telling you how you can use some AI tools to support you in framing. This is actually a very powerful tool, and it can elevate your framing skill, especially if you're a newer mediator or if framing is a skill that you are just stepping into or you want to up-level. So let me give you some practical ways where you can use ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whatever LLM is your favorite. But here's how you can use those tools in your mediation or negotiation prep. So first off, you can brainstorm reframing language for difficult client statements. Often you'll have these statements ahead of time, right? You may have gotten a pre-mediation brief, or you've had pre-mediation meetings with the parties. So you can put a prompt in that says, reframe the following client statement to emphasize the underlying interests. So a phrase like, I'm not giving them anything. That's a statement. That's a flat out, I'm not doing this. The one I've heard a million times over is, no way am I paying alimony. Or no way will I give up the house or anything like that, right? You can prompt it and say, reframe the following client statement. I'm not going to pay alimony under any circumstances to emphasize the underlying interests. You can also use ChatGPT and friends to translate positional statements into neutral, future-oriented language. So the prompt might be, rewrite this statement for use in mediation. A statement might be, they lied to me and I want them to admit it, right? So rewrite that statement so that I can use it in a neutral mediation. Reframe this. You can also test multiple ways to frame the same message. right? So there isn't just one way to do this. Your prompts might be, give me 3 alternative framings for this agreement protects both parties in the future, so that you have more than one way to frame that for them. It also gives you the opportunity to test them out in your thinking ahead of time and gives you more than one way to say it, so you don't sound like a parrot as you repeat things over and over again. It gives you different ways to perhaps frame something the same way. Another way to use it is to train for the difficult conversations. I always talk about using these tools as sort of role play partners. Well, here's a great way to do that. Ask it to simulate a client who is resistant to settlement and suggest reframes that keep the conversation constructive. And then have that conversation so that you're practicing with the GPT as if it were your difficult client. And finally, switch this over to your marketing copy for your practice and highlight the benefits instead of the features. So the prompt for this might be, frame my mediation services in terms of empowerment and clarity for clients instead of cost savings. Right? So you can use that sales approach in your marketing as well as in your service. So using AI tools in this way makes your prep faster, sharper, and more creative. And it helps you find the words that matter most and frame them with purpose. So use these tools when you're feeling a little stuck or hesitant. You'll go into your mediation process or your negotiation feeling a little more confident and ready for the discussion at hand. Finally, I want you to use framing to grow your practice because it doesn't stop in the room or at the table. It is essential in how you talk about your work. Most mediators will say something when asked about the benefits of mediation. They'll say, well, mediation is less expensive than litigation. And it is. We know that. There's nothing inherently wrong with that statement. But what if you said, mediation is the smarter, faster, and more customized way to resolve conflict. We help people take back control and move forward. Then you're not selling a service, you're offering peace, clarity, and momentum. So when you hear someone say, I don't think we need mediation, perhaps reframe it. Sounds like you're already doing the hard part, staying in conversation. Mediation can make that conversation easier and more productive. So let me leave you with a few framing takeaways. These are the golden nuggets that I hope you get from this episode. Framing is how we sell the truth without distorting it. Because mediators are not just neutral, they have the ability to be narrative editors. And what you highlight becomes the foundation of resolution. So this week, try reframing just one positional statement in your next mediation, and then sit back and watch what shifts. If you want a free framing toolkit with real-life reframe phrases you can use in practice and those AI tool prompts that I've mentioned, the link's in the show notes, and you'll just sign up for the newsletter and you'll get a link to download the framing toolkit. So I hope you found this helpful and a new bent to the podcast. We're going to go a little we're going to focus in certain episodes on these skills. Be sure to follow up and share your reframing or framing tool insights. Do that. I always do both a LinkedIn newsletter post to accompany all episodes, as well as a practice building blog on the website that supports this episode. So the other thing to do would be visit the show notes, find the link to the LinkedIn newsletter and the link to the Practice Building blog and check out those articles to see how they support your practice. Don't forget to follow, rate this episode, share the Make Money Mediating podcast, and more so that other practitioners can build practices that truly serve both the clients and the professionals. Until next time, keep framing your way to success.
Thanks for listening in on this episode of the Make Money Mediating podcast. I hope you got some great insights and tips on creating your dream practice. Join us every week on Thursdays for a new episode, and don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss anything. And if you're enjoying the podcast, here's a shameless ask. Please consider giving it a 5-star rating and tell us in a review what you find most helpful. It's honestly the best way for others to find the show so that they can make money mediating too. I'll see you next week.